Hello, hello, dear starshines. Welcome to another edition of the Lunchtime Chat. Hello, dear Sister Beverly. Hello, Sherry. You guys let me know that my sound is coming through okay. Welcome, welcome. Go ahead and say hi. Let us know that you're here. I'm checking to see about my sound. Okay, thank you, Beverly. All right. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. For those of you who are new, my name is Christina, and I am a consciousness acceleration expert. And we are here to talk about those topics and issues that are significant for us star seeds, way showers, and new paradigm visionaries. We have capacities, we have abilities that are breaking through our human conditioning. Therefore, we have very unique perspectives to the kinds of experiences we, our loved ones, and the world is going through at this time of chaos and change. And I'm here to do, to the best of my ability, to provide a liberated perspective to those challenges. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, dear Sister Louise. Hey, Darren. Nice to see you. Hey, Jackie. Yeah, so I'm still in Guatemala, and right now I'm on the top floor, the apartments that I've been staying in. This is my favorite place so far. I absolutely love this terrace that's behind me. You know, something I love about Latin America is that they leave their rooftops to be cultivated in many instances, and I just love that. In Tulum, they do this too. I do my best to find a place that has a rooftop, just because it's so nice to be, you know, oh, 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 there's a hawk carrying its prey. How auspicious is that? Um, Sorry, that totally took me out of my piece there. Oh yeah, this is what I love about Tulum, because there's all these buildings that are going up, and it's busy hustle and bustle, but you can be just above it all, where it's not as busy, and you have the open sky, and it's such a delight. Anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome. Hey Tony, glad you're here. We have some interesting things to talk about today. I want to talk about time fields and how they act as lenses to our perceptions and our consciousness. And I'm also talking about some of the veils they've lifted to some deeper levels of awareness within, revealing Telluric records. And I'm going to talk about some of the deeply embedded distortions that we are currently unraveling within the Academy. I feel like it's important to talk about that because there's been a pretty significant shift. So, you know, we have been doing this work in the Academy for quite a number of years now. And, you know, how we do things now is very different to how we did things 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 6 years ago, you know. And this is because we are a mystery school, but not like other mystery schools. You know, a lot of mystery schools have like a text, a sacred book, a deep teaching that goes back, that's been, you know, handed down through the priesthoods, through the priestesshoods, stuff like this. But though our roots go deep, my roots go deep, we're different, you know, because our aim, it's always about liberation and freedom, liberating the spirit. But that can mean a lot of things, and so I want to put this statement out there to you guys so you can see how this resonates for you. This is for everybody listening live and the recording, because our planet is changing very, very rapidly, and the mystery schools that are alive in this planet today, and granted, I don't know them all. I only know the ones that I've been exposed to. You know, it seems like some of them might have, some of them are keeping up and some of them are not. And so I just want to, you know, put words to what our particular mission is beyond the statement of liberation and freedom. Okay, so we we empower sacred dreamers. And you may know you're a sacred dreamer. You may not know that you're a sacred dreamer. You may feel like, yes, I'm a sacred dreamer, and have no idea what that means. And that is just perfect, because quite literally, our need to understand blinds us from a lot of the things that are happening with these veils that are lifting. So we empower that sacred dreamer within you to undomesticate, to break free from your human conditioning, so you can touch, know, live from that untamed, wild spirit that is the truth of who you are. Okay. And I love this particular way of saying it, because it's not about worshiping anything. It's not about venerating something that's outside of yourself. It's all about dismantling the conditioning that we, me, you, our ancestors, going back many hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of years, depending on what time lens you're looking at, we are undoing these conditionings so we can restore the truth of who we are, going all the way back to the times of Lemuria, all the way back to the times before time. And why is this significant? This is significant because as these doorways, as these veils open, and we start creating from deeper aspects of ourselves, we have an opportunity to completely retake this reality, to restore this reality to one that is sacred. Okay? We're all of existence. Every life form, every moment of every day is sacred. And this is what many, well, I don't, many but few indigenous teachings try to get us to. And this is, understanding that if you make every action, every routine into a sacred act, you are enhancing its meaning, you are enhancing the presence, you are making room for the presence of your spirit. And the more we are in synchronicity, the more we are in harmony with the natural rhythms of nature, the easier and more natural this is. The more we keep rhythm with the, I'm going to call it false artificial rhythms, the more difficult this is. And this is because everyday life these days in the city or country, even though things are slower in the country, it's still kept at a rhythm that is not in harmony with the natural rhythms of nature, of Mother Nature, that's Pachamama, but also the cosmos, the galactic, the celestial. A great example is the new year we just had. Absolutely zero celestial significance. It's purely within the human construct. If humans were not on this planet, or if humans were living by true time, that transition would mean almost nothing. Matter of fact, that wouldn't even be a mark of transition. The new year would have started with a cycle that had a celestial significance, as in a celestial relationship that impacted the entire globe. For example, the new moon that we're having is the official mark of the start of the year of the dragon. So that's because the year of the dragon is a Chinese cultural significance, and their new year starts with the new moon. It doesn't go by the January 1st model. What's really interesting is that in conversations, passing through messaging and all this other stuff, I started to recognize how other people more and more and more are keeping a different kind of time. Okay, and this is where I'm going to go into that time field as a lens to our consciousness. So We have, all right, I'll just name some of the calendars that are really well known. We have the Orthodox calendar, which goes by the moon. We have the Chinese calendar, which also goes by the moon cycles. We have the Hebrew calendar that I'm not really familiar with that calendar, but I know that it's different in the sense of they're keeping different years than what the global acceptance is right now. There's the Gregorian calendar, of course, and then you have the Zodiac calendar, and then you have the things like the Mayan calendar, the Mayan day counts, stuff like this. And of course, there's other calendars out there that I really can't put names to right now. I know of them, but I'm not exactly clear on what they're called or how they work. But to me, this is a really good sign. To me, this means that humanity is starting to wake up and activate the keys inside of them to accessing deeper and deeper telluric knowledge. Okay. Okay. So we have, thank you, Darren. Darren added in a Turtle Island calendar. I'm familiar with the story of Turtle Island, but I don't know the calendar. So if there's a link or something that you know that tells the story or has an example of what that calendar looks like, feel free to post it. People here would be interested in that sort of thing. So going back to, and this is significant because the calendars that govern our daily life is a rhythm. And when a rhythm is, going and it's sympathetic or not sympathetic with the natural rhythms, we're our actions are a little bit off step, to the and that may seem insignificant, but it's not. Because when you pile on a bunch of artificial rhythms, now you have this wall of confusion and static between our awareness and the natural rhythms, but also our awareness and the telluric records, our cellular memory. Okay. And it's really, really significant for us to access our cellular memory at this time because our DNA is waking up. Pressure is getting put upon us to wake up these DNA dances because the alternative to not waking up the DNA dance is living a life of high stress, of unhappiness, of disconnection, of depression, of disease. Okay. So we are faced with no other option really if we want to have a happy life, if we want to have peace deep inside, if we want to live at ease, if we want to feel our interconnectedness, it requires us to wake up to ourselves. It requires us to cleanse the way for this deeper rooting. And I've been in, let's see, what did I get here? I got here in Guatemala. I got here almost, I don't know, a little over a week and a half ago. And I was getting activated really quickly. And I've been thinking about why is this happening? Because I'm in a city. I'm not even in the country. I'm in Guatemala City. And I'm like, this is interesting. Why is it happening like this? What's going on? And even in Lightbody, in our dream clinics and stuff like this, like we're really expanding into other places. And it hit me in a conversation that I was having a couple nights ago. And this is because a lot of the Western minded people live in the cities, but in the country, it's still very Mayan. When you go into the country, there are still most of the people are close to their Mayan roots. Many of the women still wear the ancestral garb, men too, and there are the ancient healing arts that are alive. And there's a field. What I realized is there's a field here that is accessible that's not as easily accessible when I'm in Mexico, just to the north. Now, Guatemala, in its history, they consider themselves originally as part of Mexico. So why is it so different? And I believe it's because the Mayan tribal consciousness is still alive here, much more alive than in the places that I've been visiting in Mexico. Now, granted, I have not gone deep. Well, I've gone to some country, but I haven't gone to really deep areas. Like most of the places I've been are things like, well, the different ruins, of course, and Merida and Valladolid and Tulum, Cancun, Playa, those places, Bacalar. But those are very westernized places. Let's say it like that. It has its own magic, but the field doesn't have the level of congruency as the field here. And I really feel like part of what's holding this field to be accessible by the human conscious mind, by the DNA dance, is the fact that the Mayan calendar teachings are still very alive here. I've only dived just a little bit into the timekeeper stuff as far as Mayans to go. I mean, there's people that know far more than I do in their conscious awareness. What I have to say about it is purely intuitive, really. But there was a creation story from the Popol Vuh that I was briefly exposed to, where it talked about the star elders in their creation, their first creation of life. And at first glance, you might hear that they created man out of corn, but they created something else first out of corn. Their intention was to create a consciousness that could keep the days, okay? To create a consciousness that time could be kept by, okay? And that was with the yellow corn and the white corn. And what happened was the yellow corn became the sun and the white corn became the moon. And the story seems very simple at first, but when you start taking a step back and understanding that the mythology are truths that are yet to be realized, okay, it starts to get easier to pull back these layers of mystery and recognize that there's an understanding, layers of understanding being conveyed in a story like this. So when the Spanish came and were conquering and colonizing this area, I was told a story that they burned all the sacred books, but one, and that was the Popol Vuh, the book of the people, the book of the community, and that was kept sacred. It was kept secret. It was hidden. It was that important, which means that the stories within that book contain keys to deep levels of awareness that were considered so important that this is the one book to hide. This is the one book to make sure is kept safe. And this is also where many scholars and researchers have touched base with to start redeveloping their understanding of the Mayan calendar. Now, there's oral traditions that kept understandings alive, but these researchers played a really big role in fleshing out the keeping of time, the long count and the short, like Jose Arguelles and Johann Kalaman and other researchers like this. So the time field that's offered by this calendar, I feel, is so harmonic. It's harmonic in such a way that it keeps a living, vibrating field alive that connects human and nature and earth together. It's not separate. It's not completely severed yet. And the reason why I'm getting activated, one of the reasons why, I mean, I feel like this is all accumulation of so many things, is that I and the people in Lightbody have been practicing dreamtime for quite some time, dreaming as a mechanism to track deeply into the great mystery of who we are. And we've been working in these fields for a number of years. We've been cleaning up the lenses within. We've been cleaning up the ancestries, the emotional, subconscious wounding, the traumas. We've been doing this for quite some time. So we are very ripe to be able to benefit from this field, from this resonance of this field. And ever since I have been doing this, I've been getting introduced to new stories. And there was a story that, very impactful story on YouTube of all places, right? Things just end up in my mailbox sometimes. And it was a story of the Lemurian priestesses and priests. They were the keepers of the ages. They were the keepers of the wisdom of dragons, the wisdom of life. Okay. Now, we've had different interactions with Lemurian consciousness, Atlantean consciousness for many years. But what's happening is that there's a deepening in the storytelling. There's a deepening in the connection and understanding. And the story, and I told this in a clinic a couple days ago, or maybe that was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. The story that really is standing out to me is that in Lemuria, the sacred dreamers, Atlantis did exist at the time. So it was, one of the later phases of the Lemurian culture. They, through dreamtime, they knew a great shift, a great tragedy has happened in the cosmos, and the ripple effect of that tragedy was going to eventually reach Earth. And it was going to be in the form of a great catastrophe. And this is in connection with what we call the Great Flood. And they knew that it was inevitable. So they strategized. They decided they were going to leave the heart of their cultural center and release emissaries to go out to all the other cultures, all the other civilizations that were existing in the realm of Pachamama at the time, and start telling sacred stories. And the intention of sharing these sacred stories was to impress the memory on the DNA of everybody who hears these stories. Now, this is something very, very significant, because we're talking about a way of storytell that is using a language much more powerful than any other of the languages here in this realm at this time. Because the Greek and the Roman, the Latin, those are all post-flood. Those are all after the Anunnaki helped us recolonize. You also have the different Cyrillic languages. Those two are post-flood. So this is after the recolonization. This is a sacred language, a story told in a sacred language that is so in alignment and harmonic with truth that it literally programs the DNA with the telling of a story. Okay. And they sent their emissaries out to the different colonies, civilizations in this realm to tell the sacred story with the sacred language, so the memories would be imprinted in the DNA dance of all beings of this realm. So when the catastrophe did happen, the records would not be lost. The records of our roots, of who we are, would not be lost. You guys let me know if you're getting any sensations with what I'm saying so far. Yeah, I'll come into the comments in a moment. Let me finish this piece and I'll come into the comments. So this is maybe what we might understand as light language. And this is a light language that speaks things into form. I've also been sinking further into the recounts of the acts of Thoth, Toth, depending on everybody's potato, right? So I say Thoth. And there is a recounting of a story of him building a temple here in Mesoamerica where he spoke the stones, the building blocks of this temple into existence. He spoke them into existence. That means from sound frequency, from those nesting dolls of sound frequency, through the unseen nesting dolls of creation, through the morphic fields, through the mists of Platonia, manifested these building blocks. I'm saying this like this because it's also going to hit some memories within you guys. These time lenses some of them are ancient, and they frame up our reality in a way where we are faced with decoding the distortions and getting to the truth behind the reality. When we have stories like the two I just told you, you can imagine how that actually starts to change our ideas about how things work within the unseen realm. You can see how, maybe in a more almost tangible way, how when I say we have the capacity of dreaming the world into being, you can see maybe an idea of how this happens. Because reality really is as tangible as dreamtime. And when I say that, think about recounts of, I'm sure many of you have heard stories of people who are lucid dreamers. And in the lucid, once they wake up within their dream, they're so lucid, they can start changing their dream, changing the landscape, changing what they're engaged with. Okay? This reality is the same way. Once we wake up to who we really are, understanding that everything within this sacred realm is a tool for our exploration, we free things up inside and we can start daring to explore the dream realms and daring to touch our own capacity of how we are dreaming this world into being. It takes a courageous heart. It takes one who dares to challenge the rules of reality. And this is why I'm bringing the time field lens into your awareness, so you can start to get a picture on how they're layered in such a way that it obscures the truth that is right in front of us. I was listening to a Maori timekeeper that was being interviewed on a Dear Sister. Oh my God, this young starseed. Wow. Amazing young girl. Yay, amazing young girl. And she was interviewing him, and he too was talking about time, but also language, and how our language is another level of disempowerment tooling. And that is, we use words now that in our cellular memory back thousands of years meant the exact opposite for what we use it for now. So things like salary, things like blessed, things like oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch. There's people that do whole long lists of researches researching the etymology, and have discovered that most of the words that we use, endearment, stuff like this, these are all originally meaning the opposite of how we use them today. And you might think, what does that have to do with anything? It's how we use it today that counts. No, how we use it today is an overlay to a momentum of consciousness, okay, that started a long time ago. It's alive in our cells. It's alive in the consciousness grids of this planet. It's alive on many layers. And yes, we may choose to be clueless to these other layers, but then that's us willingly colluding with our blindness and our disempowerment. So you can see as we wake up out of these pieces why they start to become relevant in our understanding. Now, I had a dear starshine that was really, really deep into this, and it started to get difficult to even have a conversation sometimes with her because almost everything that I talked about, she would point out how the word is the opposite of what it meant. And it's true. It is true. And we have the capacity as master dreamers, as sacred dreamers, to recalibrate, retone the words that we use. This is why the language of the soul is something that is referred to as poetry. A single sentence has many meanings. This is our untamed spirit reclaiming the capacities that we have for ourselves. So the dictionary meaning of a word is irrelevant. It's about the power and presence and feeling behind the words that we're using that becomes the true meaning. You guys understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. Wonderful. All right, I'm going to pause there and check in with the Dear Starshines with their comments here. All right, so we have, all right, hello. Oh, hey, Carol, good to see you. Ella, darling, good to see you. Oh, look at that. So she says, I've been reading something about the Kundalini energy of Earth moving towards Guatemala and becoming more and more potent with the years, Mayans being the keepers. Okay. And then she goes on to say, I just got an aha moment of integration, remembering of a kind. Yes, I love those aha moments. Thank you, darling. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. So, dear sister Luna, carrying on that tangent of the words I was talking about, she says, I've been noticing with that where empathy and patient comes from the Greek root pathos, which means suffering. So she is now moving moving the meaning around. She says, I am instead calling in serenity over patience these days and feeling more into compassion versus empathy. Wow, what a wonderful point. Thank you. Thank you for making that point. Yes. So people like you, people like me, those of us who have been stripping away these blind spots and getting more deeper into the authenticity of who we are literally decoding, okay, these lenses that have been blinding us to things. So to add an extra layer to that is consider the time that you're keeping. Consider the time that you're keeping for real. One of the ways that I do this is number one, I will never wake up with an alarm clock. Okay. I do, if I have to wake up early to catch a flight or for something like this, I'll, as I'm falling asleep, I'll start tapping my lymphatic system, telling my body to wake up at a certain time. That's what I do. It works. So that's one way. And another way is that I let solar time have more dominance in my year than the Gregorian calendar time. Now I live in the Western world and I keep appointments according to a Western calendar or Gregorian calendar. So of course I do need to have contact with it, but it's not the ruler of my life. I'm more aware of the new moons and full moons and the solar relationships and the different stars than I am the days of the week. In fact, most of the time when people ask me, people don't actually, if you really know me, they don't bother asking me what day it is because usually I don't know. Okay, so but I really feel like this is a side effect of this unraveling that I've been in for so many years. Hey, Chica, welcome, welcome. Good to see you. So the time fields are very significant and it impacts our consciousness and how we relate to the outer world reality. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever dived deeper into the flat Earth teachings. I saw a video many years ago that created where they just started to explain multidimensional reality, the ripple effect of multidimensionality by these clock faces that were clocks within clocks within clocks within clocks. And one of the outer clocks was the Zodiac, and then there was the seasonal clock, then there was Gregorian calendar clock, then there was the lunar clock, and then okay, so it was clock within clock within clock. And they used that model to describe multidimensionality. And I thought it was brilliant. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I posted it, but I didn't realize, it's funny, I didn't realize this. I didn't realize it was actually a video explaining flat earth theory. I swear I never heard them say the word flat earth. I was just astounded about how they were nestling in the clocks and the energy behind what they were talking about. I thought it was fabulously done. So now that the veils are lifting, I'm getting deeper into the Telluric records. I'm seeing how even the Zodiac clock is a deeply embedded program from our Anunnaki colonizers. And I'm not saying Anunnaki is good or bad, by the way. It's with all beings. You have tyrants and you have kindness. All races have these things. Celestial races as well as earthly races, planetary races, you might call them. But what I am saying, the records are pretty consistently establishing that after the Great Flood, the Anunnaki came to help us recolonize. And for many people, they considered this a blessing. And what's very interesting, and I didn't understand, it takes all these years later. I read the Pleiadian agenda many, many, many years ago, and there's a statement made by the Pleiadians, who are the architects of the Lemurian consciousness grids. Architect, is that the right way to say it? I would say they're keepers. They were once keepers of that consciousness grid of Lemuria. They said the biggest regret of many of the Anu descendants was teaching humanity the God poison. And I think about this, I thought about it then, and I still think about it now, and I realize that sentence has a whole nother meaning as I'm getting deeper into reflecting on these historical stories on this planet. And I don't know if you guys have seen Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix. It's an excellent series. I mean, I'm not a big TV buff or Netflix buff, but that series is really worth watching. It's Graham Hancock and all of his research and historical accounts of the different sacred sites that blow the current accepted dating of our history out of the water. And one of them being Göbekli Tepe, that they found in, I believe it was Turkey, where this is a city that dates back 15,000 years. Okay. And then he tracks the accounts of many, many ancient sites, and they all pretty much say the same story, that there was a comet. The comet brought a disaster in one part of the world, and how the Kuntanawa tribe talk about it. It was an apocalypse brought by fire. And when they say apocalypse, they're talking about the way their way of life and how they existed ended and was all decimated by fire. And the Kuntanawa is in like where modern day Brazil jungle. And then the cultures that were far north here in North America, going from Central America all through North America, those accounts were about flooding. The ones in the Eastern Hemisphere were also about flooding. So it pretty much paints this picture that a comet came, struck the earth, and created a massive cataclysm, not catechism, Sorry, that's a religious term. Anyway, cataclysm that pretty much destroyed all of the civilization, all the structures with mudslides, flooding, you name it. And that there was emissaries of this event that came and told everybody this was going to happen and taught them how to prepare. Some have stories of going underground and living in the earth and meeting beings like the ant people. Some have stories of building giant ships and taking refuge on the water for many, many years. Others have stories of being taken in ships and being caretaked in some way while the destruction was happening. But they all overlap the same story that when they reemerged back on the surface of this reality, there were great master teachers that came that were giants that taught about culture, music, poetry, history, and taught man to worship a god. The Lemurian records talk about before that teaching got inserted into the consciousness of humanity, man worshiped the earth and each other, as in took great care, held all of our relations in such high regard that you worked your will to create beauty and to bring enrichment to the life that was around you. Pretty much, instead of putting our energy towards worshiping a god to bestow favor on us or good crops or whatever, we held that kind of reverence for each other. We were so deeply in reverence of our interconnectedness that this realm was considered a paradise, a sacred realm. And that seed is the poison that sits with us today. Now, if you look at all the different wars that have gone on in our culture, I'm just going to call it human culture, they're pretty much all based on religion in some way. So you can see how the seed of the God poison, what that did is it seeded us to feed our deep interconnectedness with a warrior consciousness, which is the some sects of the Anunnaki, the ones that are aligned with the Draco consciousness. Now, I'm not saying anybody's the enemy here, because here now in this realm, we are faced with recalibrating and harmonizing all these aspects of who we are to bring everybody back into the fold. So no matter who you are in the spectrum of consciousness, everybody gets the invitation to come back home. So, but what I'm saying with this is that in that act, and we began to worship these beings, they came from a warrior mentality, and we started to venerate the consciousness that feeds the need for battle, the need for war. And if you couple this with the mythology of humans being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, being cursed to reap only thistles and thorns from the earth, now we have something to fight about, which is resources. Okay. And this is a consciousness grid that has been overlaid on this reality, fed by humans, Anunnaki alike, And this is a grid that goes far beyond this reality. This is a consciousness grid that extends out into different sectors of our celestial fields. So as we wake up to who we are, we start developing lenses to perceive these other nesting dolls of reality. And right now, with the awakening of dragon consciousness, it's been waking up for quite some time, but now it's starting to reach, I want to say, a critical mass. Now, more than ever before, we have access to those sacred records that the Lemurian keepers were planting all those thousands and thousands years ago. And we are faced with decoding those records and bringing the essence of that alive to activate higher forms of our DNA. And this is how we integrate these activations. This is how we integrate and become what many indigenous prophecies have talked about, becoming the new human on this planet. And I love this because it doesn't exclude anybody. Everybody who wants to do this lens cleansing, so to speak, has access to these gifts, to these upgrades, okay? But the thing is, and this may be, some people feel unfairness with this, people need to wake up to why it's important to do so. And this brings me to what I was saying in the very beginning, that the pressure that's being put on humanity right now is forcing people to reevaluate and live more true to themselves if they want any hope to have happiness and peace in this life. Okay. All right, dear sister Luna Rio, welcome. She wants to chime in. Sardinia, there's evidence of these giants. This is true. I was just being exposed to a story. The bones are still there. The people that know about them will take people to see these bones. So she says giant tombs and an indent giant tombs and an indent on a mountain that is said to have been made by a giant that fell and straddled it. Interesting. Yeah, see, these stories, they seem fantastical, but when we start clearing these lenses and start getting access to other alternative histories and the Telluric records, these kinds of stories activate something inside of us. They're no longer tall tales. And this, this is reminding me of a teaching that was told to me long ago when we were exploring the mysteries of the North, and my teacher Alberto was saying that myths are simply truths we have not realized yet. They're truths that we have not woken up to yet. That's why they're still a myth. Once we wake up to the truth of what they're telling us, it becomes a sacred story, an origin story. And that is a powerful, powerful telling. Just like the Mayan origin stories, it's a powerful telling. Imagine if every time we feed someone deep in lack, if we don't just, give them food or give them, whatever it is they need to help them recover, instead of just doing that, we actually gave them what it is they needed, but gave it to them with a new origin story, one that told them that they came from a magic seed, that they came from a deep mystery that was one of the most miraculous events in the galaxy. Imagine if we told that to our children. Imagine if we told that to people who are suffering that we're trying to help. Okay? It changes the playing field completely. Okay. So I'm getting into this other place here, and this is a point of frustration for a lot of people who are on the path of awakening, and that is having the need to understand get in the way of them actually understanding, them getting in the way of actually activating and integrating their new DNA dances. And I say this because logic and reason is an art, it's a mystery school brought forward by different philosophers, famous ones, one being Pythagoras with the math school of ancient, I think it was Greece. So, and what happens is all of these are sprouted out of the teachings post flood. So they all have a inception to them that keeps us narrow, our perceptions in a bandwidth. Versus if we are going off teachings that have never been domesticated, then that is one that's still steeped in mystery, that's still steeped in the abstract. So because the abstract cannot be logically understood, a lot of us struggle with it. Okay. And it's a muscle inside of our brain that isn't exercised very often. So our conditioning is what requires us to have a linear understanding of things. Now, you're making progress when you're able to trust an intuitive knowing over your logic. Okay? If you're able to trust that intuitive knowing and take action from it, even though on the surface it's totally irrational, illogical, right? You're starting to get somewhere in the integration of activating your integrating your higher levels of DNA activations. Now, there's words put forward like 12 strand, 24 strand, 36. There's all this. I can't really speak to that because that is not the understanding I have of our DNA dance. And this could be an understanding that's just unique to my lens. So I really can't speak to the DNA activations like that. But I do know that consciousness and DNA, and deep inside my inner knowing tells me consciousness and the DNA dance are linked. The more free your DNA dance is, the more expanded it is and free to move, the more expanded your conscious awareness is. And where the rubber meets the road is you living your life in a way that's authentic to that DNA dance. And quite literally, what I'm learning through my observations and in my own life is that people who are considered savants in this world are authentically living their DNA dance. They don't seem to be hindered by the same programming and consciousness grids that other people are hindered by. Why is this so? Why is this so? In many ways, in my perception, it's because of the agreements that we came through the fields with. And maybe that's an ancestral agreement. Maybe it's another kind of agreement. But according to the Sasquatch, every being that comes into this realm, that incarnates into this realm through a mother, makes these agreements. And the highest order of the agreement is to split us in two. So if we have a life, if we're born into a life where we're all in light, there is an equal counterbalance to that in the underworlds living the dark. And it's also vice versa. We may have a life of the light, pure light within the earth, and on the surface live a life that's totally dark. So in this way, we can't punish the darkness because it's an aspect of the light. So it's really about waking these pieces up to their sameness and bringing them back together. It's fascinating pieces that the Sasquatch talk about because their time scale is much vaster than any other time record I have ever heard stories from. Their time records go back many millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. And I love this because their time record is able to tell stories of time that frame things up for the here and now in such a way that it liberates one's perception or one's hooks and drags in the polarity field. Now, remember this polarity field, if you guys remember, I talked about this many chats ago. The polarity field was laid down and anchored by the societies known as Atlantis. Now, Lemuria had many phases and Atlantis had many phases. Okay, so there's like the golden era, so to speak, of the Atlantean time. That's not necessarily the time that I'm talking about. It's more in the later eras of Atlantean times where the power over dynamics were getting anchored into the consciousness of this planet. These power over dynamics were born out of the perception of superiority. Okay. So this was a undercurrent that was inherited by the seeders, by the consciousness soul groups that were incarnating in the Atlantean civilization. It was a multi-exopolitical civilization. It wasn't all about just humanoids. The perceptions of reality were far vaster than what they are now. So there were many different human races from many different galaxies. Okay. There were soul groups from many different sectors of the cosmos. It was maybe what someone might call a cosmic metropolitan society, but it was under the rule of a hierarchy. And there came the inherited sense of superiority. Versus Lemuria was more of a organic, everything goes, everything is sacred the way it is kind of society. Nothing was hurried because nothing is in a hurry. You see what I mean? It's like everything is perfect exactly as it is. This is the teachings, the sacred wisdom of Cosmic Mother. So there is a recalibration and a reunification that all of us are faced with in the here and now. So this is why I'm telling you these tales. This is why I'm talking about the time fields. This is why I'm talking about the Telluric records and cellular memories and DNA dances. And that's to give you a perspective and tools, perhaps, to awaken you up. I said that weird. Tools to help you, support you in the integration and waking you up out of the old archaic version of human DNA dance. Now, it's very interesting, my path. I was so extraordinarily blessed. I had no clue. I was blind stepping into this work. I just knew in my heart when I wanted to do something, I wanted to do it. And it happened. Even when it seemed impossible, even when I didn't have the time, I didn't have the babysitters, I didn't have the money, I didn't have the, it's like I had the whole list of why it couldn't happen. But I knew in my heart I wanted it and I was going to go for it if that opportunity presented itself. And sure enough, it did. And the people, the beings that came into my world to teach me were not sounding at all like the teachings that other people on a spiritual path were learning, And in a way, I kind of felt a lot like an odd man out in so many ways because I just couldn't get with the mystery school programs that everybody else was in, And this is like ancient Sanskrit teachings, ancient Rosicrucian teachings, there's all these different mystery schools out there, even the dolphin mystery schools, I resonate with the Pleiadian teachings a lot, but not enough to really want to chase that. But the ones that I did find myself in were talking about sacred dreaming, which at the time I barely was in recollection of my dreams. The ones that I did have were very profound, and I realized later that's because a teacher in my dream time was present teaching me. Okay, and plus I had memory blocks to to abduction experiences when I was young. So when those blocks were removed, that opened up my dream time a lot more. And the other thing that they talked about was the new human that these times were going to bring to this planet. And this new human wasn't about a next generation of humans. It was an awakening of a quantum human within the generations. So it wasn't, only the offspring. It was the parents, it was the grandparents that had the capacity to wake up into the encodements of this new human. At the time, I'm talking 30 years ago, that was something really odd. Nowadays, the teachings are more out there and accessible, and people are touching on this. So what I'm getting at with this is that you are the new human. I am the new human. And what this means is, and I'm going over my time, so hopefully you guys can stick around for this last piece. What this means is what we are bringing, the reality fields that we are tasked with bringing forward into the current reality isn't anything that matches the foundations of the reality we're living right now. Okay? And what I mean is that, a lot of people, when they think about New Earth, they think about what we have going on right now, but better. Okay? We're not polluting. Everybody, poverty is over. People aren't sick anymore. There's peace on Earth, right? Humanity's got a different attitude towards nature. See, you guys with me? That's what a lot of people consider New Earth. And that is a very limited idea of what we're heading towards as new humans. And it's because our imagination can't stretch far enough to let go of, say, our modern conveniences, right? The way we do things, the way we think about how reality works. But as new humans, as our recollection goes back beyond the current age, right? And through our cellular memory, all the way back before time was time, we can dream an entirely new potential that doesn't look anything like this. Okay? And this is, to me, very, very, very important. This is a pivotal piece to the new human experience. Because the old narrative of New Earth allows us to be manipulated with promises of zero-point technology, with promises of medbed technology, with promises of an outside force forcing peace on Earth. Okay? This is all power over dynamic ideas it's deeply in the undercurrent. I want to plant this seed of thought with you guys. What if we can completely wipe the momentum of our current Earth circumstances and dream forward something entirely new, completely different? One that is not based on our ideas of electricity, that is not based on our current ideas of the mechanics of reality. What if we pull directly from the quantum a completely different society that functions under completely different paradigm rule, completely different ideas? What does that look like? Okay, I'll leave you guys with that thought. Thank you, thank you, thank you for hanging out. Most of you guys hung out for the whole talk. I really appreciate your time and attention. I know how precious it is, so I'm deeply honored that you're here, giving me your focused attention. I really appreciate that. You guys, I encourage you, keep doing what you're doing. These changes from within are happening. And as they do, the changes that you want to happen in your life will just automatically happen. It's not about how disciplined you are. It's not about, all the different, power ideas. It's, dedication, commitment to self, commitment to knowing thyself. That's the piece that you need, and the rest of it all comes together from there. If you guys are interested in stepping into the great mysteries of Dreamtime, I invite you guys to check out our Dreamtime Healing Project. This is a deep, deep, deep body of work where after you learn how to get command of your energy field and keep good energetic hygiene and start engaging in your dreams and in certain ways, you start learning how to track dreams and start joining the team of, let's say, quantum dreamers, and really let the magic and mystery unfold. Let your untamed spirit become realized. So I invite you guys into that. That's our Dreamtime Healing Project. You can find more information about that in our Lightbody Academy website. Thank you, thank you, thank you again. I'll see you guys next time. Make it a great week. Bye-bye.